Hello and welcome to episode 68 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast. We are back. We skipped a week because of the silly Wednesday night kickoffs, meaning that it wouldn't be uploaded till Friday and then you haven't got time to listen to it before Saturday. So if there's any Wednesdays in the season, we won't be recording. It's just too much. But other than that, we'll be back normal times in between. So next week, we'll be back for just a normal midweek episode. So tonight's episode is covering the last three games, which is Gateshead away, Truro City away, and also Brackley Town at home most recently. So the panel of Guy, Ian, and Julian discuss those, and we also look ahead to the Carlisle United game away on Saturday, which I'm very excited for. Less excited knowing that it's going to be raining and it's an open terrace, but such is life in the National League. One thing I did want to mention was Aldershot Town's women's team, who they did have their first league game at the weekend. It was postponed / abandoned. Not entirely sure. Couldn't find out actually. It says postponed on the FA website, but I saw abandoned, so I'm not sure. It's against Bellsden Reserves. So they're up against Hythe and Dibden away on Sunday the 14th, if you fancy heading down to beyond Southampton. They won 4-0 in their opener. Before we have another home game against Gosport Borough Youth, which is on the 21st of September, both Sundays. And that latest one is being played at Gordon's Sports Hub, which I had to look up where it is because I've never been past it. Lightwater and Bisley are the two nearest places, or West End, if you know that. It's a drive, really. So if you drive and you fancy watching some women's football, get yourself down there on Sunday, the 21st of September. Other than that, that's all. Enjoy the episode, and we'll be back next week. Up the shots. So the shots are very mid-table at the moment, depending on how York are currently doing in their game as we record. The shots after 3-3-2s in a row, previously to when we last recorded, followed up by the two wins by 4 goals, and now we've had 3 score draws, 2 2-alls, and a 3-all since we last recorded that we need to go into. So plenty of goals to talk about, plenty of controversy, red cards, injury time winners, not winners, equalisers, and other late equalisers to discuss. And the one thing I just wanted to bring up, which is a big credit to Aldershot Attic, if you're not following it on Facebook, Twitter, I think that's where all the places it is. This is the first time that any Aldershot team in history have scored 2 goals in all of the first 8 games of a league season. Which, I mean, obviously that is a mental stat, but it was quite funny at the weekend. My friends have been every week following how many goals Aldershot have scored. So I was at a wedding, and I said to them, "Oh, we scored with 10 men." They were like, "Yeah, but you've only scored 2." They were kind of disappointed that we'd not stuck 3 or 4 past Brackley, as I'd said earlier in the day that we would. I guess we better start with the Gateshead away game, which was the 3-all a couple of weeks ago. Hargreaves made it 11 different goal scorers this season for the shots, scoring the second goal. Where to begin? I guess we'll start with the 2 big long away games. We had Truro after that, and then we'll see what things come up from those. I'll come to you first, Julian. Your thoughts on those 2 big away games and the very topsy-turvy nature of them both?
Yeah, thanks, Will. It proved to be 2 really interesting games in the sense that I think I said on the last pod that I really wasn't sure which way these games were going to go. And, true to form, I think I was calling out for an 8-6 in the previous pod for the Gateshead one. And true to form, plenty of goals, defence is largely non-existent, and it could have ended up at an 8-6 at the end of it. But I guess my disappointment is that I felt you could argue we did defend okay, but for that sort of 2-minute moment on the hour mark where suddenly from being 2-1 ahead, we're 3-2 behind. So that was disappointing. But yeah, it's a roller coaster ride. Another 3 goals away from home, but it might be a question I put out to the rest of you is that can we keep do we still need to keep scoring 3 goals every game to be in with a chance of getting some points? And we're now 8 games in now, and before long it'll be 10, 12 games, and we I'm hoping that with a bit of defensive solidity that we can start to sort of turn the tide on that. And I think we did see it initially, didn't we, with the Solihull and the Morecambe game, and that coincided with me with Will Nightingale really coming to the foreground, and Gateshead and also the Truro game as well, which I was lucky enough to be at. I thought Will Nightingale was an absolute warrior. I thought he played his best game, and so disappointing that he ended up injured at the end of Truro. But yeah, Gateshead overall, we would have probably taken a point, wouldn't we, at the start from there? But it was disappointing that we lost those 2 goals, and even more so the last minute phantom goal that I thought counted. And that's Aldershot for you. I was sitting in my car listening to that Gateshead game, and I'd parked up, thankfully. And then when the commentary came through that we'd scored, I was jumping around, and then I was disappointed, and all the emotions of Aldershot just summed up in that one moment. And I don't know whether it's my Aldershot hat on or not, but I just feel that we have been really unlucky with some decisions this season. I'm just hoping that they will sort of even themselves out.
Yes, yeah, I suppose I think that's exactly what Hugo Langton said after the Truro game in his interview. After obviously the Dewhurst red card decision, which was subsequently overturned, meaning he could go in goal for the Brackdale home game. But yeah, that was widely widely derided from both sides, which is quite an unusual thing to see. Both managers saying the referee had a poor game, and so yeah, that was one of the main things. I'll come to you, Ian, next. Your thoughts on those two long trips away to Gateshead and Truro?
Yeah, just quickly on the ref, James Durkin for that Truro one. Did you see he was on a Sky game at the weekend, Bromley Gillingham, and he had a bit of another nightmare with that one as well. Terrible penalties decision if you've not seen that. So yeah, refereeing decisions for sure, certainly hindering the shots at the minute, but there's also plenty of errors that are self-made from Aldershot in this, and Gateshead, I'm pretty much you're always going to be happy with the point, aren't you? If you travel that far away, it's somewhere we've obviously had mixed results in recent seasons, probably slightly better, but 3-3 draw, and from being behind a couple of times, then yeah, I think that's fairly good. Keeps up the tag of entertainers. But I think when I was last on the voice notes before Truro, I think I said that anything less than 3 points, and that wasn't being sort of complacent or arrogant, that Aldershot should go there and win. Look, we know we've followed this club long enough to know that you can't guarantee that, but you certainly are eyeing up Truro as, based on their, was it 5 defeats in a row, I think they'd had previously, that is one we want to win. And the referee, yeah, has massively stitched us up there. So yeah, it's disappointing to only get two points from those, but you don't know what would be a reasonable outcome. Was it 6? Would it be 4? Would 3 be more accurate? And then yeah, the last minute equaliser that meant, oh, actually a point again on the road, long journey. Got those ones out of the way, but I think there'll be quite a few teams going to Cornwall getting 3 points, and we're not going to be one of them, unfortunately.
Yes, yeah, very true. Yeah, you mentioned the injury time equaliser. That was James Henry's penalty, which after Hargreaves made it 11 different goal scorers at Gateshead, that made it 12 different goal scorers with that. And yeah, definitely felt like a bigger result than it does on paper. And I guess that's how you have to reevaluate it, don't you? I mean, beforehand, I would have said 4 points from those two, would have been happy with them. But as soon as you go 2-1 down away to Gateshead and you get a draw, and as soon as you go down to 10 men away at Truro, then you're thinking, well, I mean, a draw is then turns into a good result. But over the course of a season, you're hoping that you don't get those situations where people are turning games around on the hour mark and scoring 2 goals, and you're not getting too many decisions like the Dewhurst decision that could have, you could probably point to it maybe later in the season and say that probably has cost us 2 points if they go on to continue this form that they're on, Truro. And Guy, I'll come to you. Your thoughts on those 2 away games?
Well, yeah. First of all, I think, I don't know if anyone actually managed to make both of the games, because if so, I mean, they did a 1,000-mile round trip to both of those games. So credit to them for doing that. I mean, following on from what Ian and Julian have said, to try and think of something a little bit different to say. I mean, I did say somewhat in jest, I think before the Gateshead game, that we'll need 3 points to at least get a point. Or sorry, 3 goals at least to get a point. And sure enough, that's pretty much how it turned out. Although, I mean, Truro and Brackley have shown us that no, we can do it now with just 2 goals. But I mean, I don't want to go through all of the detail of each of those goals, but Julian's quite right to say that we did really sort of inflict some injury upon ourselves. Certainly that second Gateshead goal was really the result of, sort of Meerholtz getting tangled up and losing the ball on the edge of the area, which, that's just maybe sort of young naivete, I suppose, but something we're definitely going to need to work out on. Other things to take away from it, though. Barrett and Thomas really seem to be linking up very nicely. If you think about that first Aldershot goal, which was a Barrett cross with Thomas sort of putting in a header at the near post, and there's been a few signs of that of the two of them, working quite well together. Less so with Abraham so far, although Abrahams is putting in the work, but we just haven't seen the results there. And the other thing also to point out was, you've got now. We talked a little bit. We heard Widdrington talk about this last year, where he talked about wanting to have starters and finishers with his squad, and I think that sort of got taken a bit to the side by the number of injuries we had. But what is interesting about the last couple of games is we do seem to have a settled, 3-4-3, and the same players playing, but then sort of drawing off, Barrett and Abrahams, during the midway in the second half, and then bringing on Henry and Gandor, and what's been fantastic is watching them bringing on fresh legs, really going at the defense, and it pays off. We saw that with Gandor, following up for Aldershot's third goal against Gateshead when Barrett's free kick went off the post. And in fact, Barrett himself. I mean, we'll get to it, I suppose, with Brackley, but him following up on the Tetex drive against Brackley. So, there is some very good positives to take away from all of this. That said, I would say that we do seem to sometimes be a little bit vulnerable on the counter attack. That's something that was there last year. It seems to still be very much the case this year as well. But I also feel a lot more confident with the defense this year as well. We've certainly over those three games, we had pretty much some continuity with the personnel there. Yes, okay, sadly Nightingale got injured, but there does seem to be sort of a nucleus of a defense, in operation. It just seems that they have occasional lapses of concentration, and that's what we've got to work at.
Yeah, I suppose we did before these couple of away games. I suppose we did start to see that back three was staying the same quite a lot. I think that was looking quite balanced, I guess. I think Meerholz probably wasn't the right fit, but it seemed he looked more comfortable on the ball regardless. He was very comfortable on the ball anyway. He's a defensive midfielder, but yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how we go forward. We've obviously signed Charlie Penman. And then Ben Jackson is coming back into the fold. interesting to see what the best three is, and whether we're going to be able to string that together for 5-6 games in a row, to give us that continuity that we know we need, for that back three, because the back end of last season, when we were hoping for points in the kind of relegation battle, I think that back three looking comfortable together was a big help. So yeah, the shots, 3-3 at Gateshead, and then 2-2 away to Truro, red card for Hargreaves as well. So the last minute injury time equaliser was with 9 men, which is always, I mean, I don't know how you score with 9 men. Shouldn't be possible. So I guess we'll move on to Brackley Town. We've mentioned it a little bit there. So the shots, shots drew 2-2, went 1-0 up. Another red card, this time 2 yellow cards for Charlie Penman. Sorry, I meant Ben Jackson, not Charlie Penman. And with Archie Taylor popping up with his second goal of the season in the 84th minute. So this one was live on DAZN at 5:30 kickoff. Julian, I'll come to you first. What were your thoughts on Brackley Town at home?
Yeah, obviously disappointed that we weren't able to see that one out, bearing in mind we were leading at half time. But Brackley are a frustrating team. They're workmanlike, they're not spectacular in what they do, but they're effective. If you look at their results so far this season, they've scored very few and they've conceded very few games in the games. So yeah, that was always going to be a tough one to crack, and they've largely kept their team from last year too. So they haven't needed to get everyone sort of on board and bed in new signings. So it was always going to be a tough game. The thing for me that is frustrating, guess, and that may come down to a bit of inexperience, is that there seems to be a lot more refs really content at giving penalties for holding this year. We've seen it already in 2 or 3 of our games, and I guess my frustration is that if you're on a yellow card already, the last thing you need to be doing at the moment is holding on to players in the penalty box, because there's a good chance that the ref's going to give it. And I don't know what the others feel about that, but it just feels to me as if the refs are really looking out for this year, and it's come back to bite us a couple of times already. So that was disappointing. But you go 2-1 down, and how many times do we get back into these games even without 11 players? So again, I think you have to just take it as a point and move forward. But so many games this season now, we've given ourselves a mountain to climb, and we've climbed it, which is great. But it would be nice to just have a good few games where we're not having to come from behind all the time with only 2 players on the pitch. It's that sort of thing for me. But just a quick shout out to a couple of the players, because if you look at some of the outstanding performances so far that we've seen, I think Tetek has been amazing. He's dominated the midfield, knows what to do all the time, makes the right passes. We mentioned Archie Taylor before. I think he's passed his test with regard to the defence. Bit of a discussion that we didn't think he had been tested, but I think he has come through that, and obviously he's chipping in with some goals as well. Loves taking up that position just inside the penalty box, doesn't he? When the ball's on the left hand side. And I'm really looking forward to seeing James Henry back to full fitness as well, because the 2 occasions he's been on, when I saw him at Truro and again at Brackley, he just has that class. He knows what to do with the ball, and he's always available. And I'm looking forward to seeing him. I guess the conundrum, once Henry is back to full fitness, and also with Ryan Jones coming back in on the left hand side, is do we have an embarrassment of riches now in that sort of number 10 role with Josh Barrett, Ryan Hill? Potentially that's his best position too, and then you've got James Henry. So I think there's some interesting, and of course Tyler Frost still not in the picture yet. So there's going to be some really interesting team lineups, I think, and it's going to be a bit of a tricky one for Tommy to see what his best formation might be.
Yeah, it's true, and we've obviously had those discussions already earlier this season that we think that the two up top with Barrett in behind is not maybe our most effective way of creating chances and giving Barrett the room to do what he does best. So it'd be interesting to see if he's forced into moving that formation around to fit in some of the better fits or better players into that central attacking midfield positions. And be interested to see if maybe Henry is kind of on a maximum 30 minutes kind of a season. He's got his coaching role, he's doing those kind of things. Maybe he has kind of agreed to that. Yeah, and I certainly wouldn't want him to stick 90 minutes in randomly in a midweek game if we can't get these lovely little cameo roles. Starting to remind me of Glenn Little's spell with us, where he just used to come on with 20 minutes to go and just run rings around players, and then yeah. So we'll come to you next, Ian. What are your thoughts on the Brackley Town at home game?
Yeah, contrast of styles. Brackley, very sort of organised, and obviously Aldershot. To me, it felt a little bit like in the first half, similar to the Morecambe game, where we started to look comfortable. And 1-0 up at half time, I really thought that, we had the potential to go and put 2 or 3 more past Brackley, but second half didn't really get going. And then the penalty decision on 65 minutes, and I don't think there's any doubt about it being a penalty. And what Julian says is right about the referees looking to give holding, because it is a foul. That's fine. But at the same time, is this one that deserves the double jeopardy of the second yellow and the red card? So that was very frustrating. And then Brackley obviously took the lead 15 minutes later, and you're like, okay, this is one that's got away. But good work from Archie Taylor in terms of just hit it really nicely. Yes, there was deflection that went our way, but I think 2-2 was probably the right result in the end. But from where we were at half time, I felt it was 2 points dropped.
Yeah, always tough. I think that's those 3 games in a nutshell, really, that we're at different points in that game. We should be, we feel like we should be ahead, or we should be making it 3 points, or not losing it from here. And yeah, it's quite strange that we've ended up in this position where all 3 of them have ended in score draws, and it's almost like parity. Guy, I'll come to you. How do you feel about the Brackley at home game?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit like with Truro, that we seem to be sort of, I don't want to say coasting, but we seems to be, things seem to be going up. We had the momentum, and then what with the Dewhurst sending off, and then also, with Jackson being sent off, things just shifted really, and then we seem to be sort of just chasing the game somewhat. So to actually come out with something at the end of both of those games is something, I suppose. Plus, also keep in mind, we managed to finish the game against Truro, as you pointed out, with 9 men, and Brackley with 10 men. So imagine what we could do if we could actually just keep 11 players on the pitch. I mean, I'm hoping for that, in the weeks to come. But really, that penalty and the second red that Jackson received. I mean, this is also to some extent similar to the point I was making earlier about Meerholtz. A certain degree of, I think, youthful naivete. Not thinking through the consequences. You really, as Julian was pointing out, if you're going to be grappling with players in the box and referees are going to blow up, then you need to be a little bit more clever and a bit more savvy. And players will fall if there's an opportunity. So maybe a bit of weakness on sort of naivete on Jackson's part there. And I think also I think there's also something to be said about that with Brackley's second goal as well. If you watch the replay again, what you notice as well is that, well, first of all, Dewhurst is being blocked from being able to reach the ball, so he was out of contention. But the scorer who came in to head it, he was up against Theo Widrington, whose game he'd just come back, right? And you could see he seemed to be in 2 minds about whether to sort of grapple with this player or not. And in the end, he just he stood back a bit, and I think that's what maybe there's a little bit of thinking going on in the players themselves. Like, they've referees already given one penalty here. I need to be a bit careful, and it cost us. So the fact that we actually did manage to get that second goal with with the crossover to over which Taylor was pretty much clear to with nobody in the penalty area to slot in, I think may was a 0.1 rather than sort of 2 lost to me. But also it's the other thing as I was going to just say, because we've mentioned Taylor and Tetek as well. But with Taylor, it's he's really been doing very well, given that he started off, I think it was last season in the division below. So he's really demonstrating his ability. And we talked a little bit about the midfield. About yes, we've got potentially some additional players coming back. But what's really encouraging right now is what we just like with the defense, we have a pretty settled midfield as well. And what's nice is that if we do lose a player like Hargreaves, at least we have someone we can slot in, as we did against Brackley. So I'm fairly sort of confident with the way the nature of the squad as well. And as you were saying about Henry, I'm very much of I do get the sense that he is very much a finisher this year rather than a starter, and that's actually no bad thing, because as I pointed out before, both him and Gandor coming on and running at those defenses, in the last 20 minutes or so, when they've got tired legs and they're willing to do it. I think it really helps. I mean, if you noticed in the build up to Aldershot's second goal against Brackley, Henry was all over the park, and I don't think he could do that if he was playing 90 minutes. So overall, I think it is a squad game. It's not just the 11 that sort of the first 11 that are being called, being put on the team sheet. So I think we're doing fairly well there. As I said, still some issues to do with set pieces and a bit of counter attack, but overall, I think if we can just keep 11 players on the pitch, we should do okay.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. And I suppose we move on to one place where we are going to need all 11 players at the weekend, after playing 2 newly promoted teams in the last couple of weeks. We head to Carlisle United away, relegated last season from League Two, who've had a pretty decent start to the season, about as good a start as a newly relegated team tend to have in the National League. They are the league's second top goal scorers. Of course, the Shot's 22 goals. They've got 17 so far, 7 of which have come from Regan Linney, who signed from Altrincham. And he missed both games last season against the Shots, which we were very thankful for at the time. He finally has his chance to score some goals against Aldershot. 4 more have come from Luke Armstrong, and they've still got Stephen Weir in support, who I think he's yet to score, but he has 2 assists. So yeah, they started off their home games this year with 2 scored draws against Boreham Wood and Solihull. They've subsequently won 5-0 at home to Braintree, and most recently 3-0 at home to Truro. You would have seen that Truro fans went down. I think there was 79 down there at the weekend for currently the longest trip in English football, I think, which will be beaten when they play Gateshead. It's slightly further across the country later in the season. So yeah, you would have seen that Truro didn't have any of the seats. So that's a new change. So Aldershot will be on the Petterill end, the away terrace. The weather is not looking great, so probably in the rain. So they're currently averaging over 7,000 in their home games so far, all against teams that have brought well under 100 fans. So it'd be interesting to see how this. I don't know. I haven't really got an opinion until I'm stood on the Petterill end terrace at the weekend in the rain, and then I will have an opinion. Brunton Park is the largest stadium in England to still include traditional terracing. Did you know that? Its capacity of 17,949. That's a quick fire roundup of things I know about Carlisle. Let's go to Julian. What are your thoughts ahead of this one at the weekend?
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. Carlisle are going to be difficult to beat. That's a given. It's going to be a tough one. And with Regan Lilly and Luke Armstrong, as you've already alluded to, that's probably the most dangerous strike force potentially in the division. And you could argue that if they went up and got promoted, then those two would be again on fire in League Two. Yeah, Luke Armstrong, I don't know if you remember, but he was on the verge of moving from Harrogate to Wrexham last Christmas. And yeah, he's really highly thought of, and I'm still not quite sure how he's ended up at Carlisle, to be honest. But yeah, but a really potent strike force, and yeah, we're going to have to be certainly on our guard to stop either of them two scoring. The pessimist in me says that we will lose this one. But then if we can play the crowd, there's 7,000 people going to be there again. If we do get in front and we get the and you're singing your heart out, Will, as well. I'm hoping that the crowd will get on their back and they'll start to get frustrated, a bit like they played against Solihull and Boreham Wood at the start of the season. They didn't quite click, but that's what I'm hoping for, that we can get ahead and we can actually hold on to something. So looking forward to seeing what the result will be there.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, I'm resting my voice after a weekend wedding on Saturday, where I lost my voice on the Sunday. So I think I'll be fit and raring to go on Saturday. I come to you, Ian. Any thoughts on Carlisle away?
Yeah, mixed feelings, really. I mean, you remember last year I was on and quite often felt more optimistic about the better teams, and Carlisle going well now. They've obviously had their sort of welcome back to non-league in terms of the Boreham Wood home draw and away defeat to Sutton in August, and they're motoring along pretty well now. So hopefully this is one where Aldershot can raise their game, and yeah, we can be in this game, and hopefully it'll be at least one point to be worth the journey for everyone.
Nice. Yeah, hopefully so. Yeah, they've only conceded 6 so far, so quite a stern defence. And the look through their defence on the recent lineups are just kind of the who's who of kind of League Two defenders that I've heard of, which is quite rare at this level, because I usually go, I've never heard of you in my life. Guy, what do you think ahead of the weekend?
Well, yes, as the others have all pointed out, Carlisle come into this strong favourites over us. Oh, by the way, well done. Credit to you and everybody else who does go, because this is going to be a 640-mile round trip for this game. And it should also be said, look, we've done Gateshead, we've done Truro, and we're doing Carlisle, all within space of a couple of weeks. I know some have been grumbling about it, but I think actually in a way it's good to get these. I mean, you're going to have to play them anyway, but it's also good to get them out of the way as well. These away games so far away at this time of the season, because who really wants to be doing these kind of trips once we get into sort of the middle of winter and it's dark and it's gloomy and particularly wet. So in a way, doing this sort of in late summer, early autumn, probably much more appealing. Plus, after Christmas, they have to come to us. So, they're the ones facing the longer trip at that time of year. So I think in a way it's probably just as well to get it done. Yeah, you've pointed out that there's, that they've got their defenders are sort of, League Two standard, and they do stand out a bit. They've been putting in quite a bit of work, particularly Cammy Harper and Archie Davies, and these are two that we should probably be trying to watch, because they do seem to overlap on the wings, and so can put in crosses. So we will need to, have set, play in place to neuter them. Also, keep in mind, I mean, if you're talking about Luke Armstrong and Regan Lilly sort of scoring 11 goals between them out of their 17, that does suggest a little bit of dependence on those two. So if you can somehow neutralize them, then that potentially, gives us an opportunity in. I mean, and from our ends, as you pointed out at the very start of the show, we have had 10 scorers or so. So we're scoring from all over the park. So in a way, I'm not so fussed about the fact that, yes, they might be a great striking duo, but if we can sort of just make sure that they can't get through, or sort of defend accordingly, then we can neutralize them. And certainly they are, they themselves feel that they've not reached top gear yet, and that so they do feel they've got momentum. So I think if we can do something, as Julian said, disruptive, early on, that could really make the difference for us.
Lovely stuff, and just in time for the end of the Zoom. I would like to say, I think we could probably go there because I went to Oldham last year, and that felt like a complete lost cause, and we went there and won. So maybe, just maybe, there'll be some limbs in the Petheril end on Saturday. Here's hoping. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you. Thanks. There was that brief glimmer where we were sort of within touching distance of the playoffs had we won on Saturday, but there you go.
We're always in touching distance if you talk to me and Julian.
We're always in touching we're in touching distance of both ends of the table. That's the thing about us.
Guy, the playoffs are there. They're just within reach.